now that we've gone over some of those housekeeping items and I've had the privilege to welcome you all to Lady Charts 2 and still Frozen 3, it's cold out there, is my privilege to get to introduce to you Reverend Yadini Hailu, who's going to be providing us with a healing justice moment today and tomorrow. Thank you so much, Yadini. I'm so excited for everyone to get to hear from you.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, everyone. I'm so grateful to be here today. Today, I'm going to be doing a lot more talking. I just want to stuff as much context into these few minutes that we have together. But then tomorrow, our time together will be more spacious and experiential. And I hope that combination supports you in embodying healing as a way, as the path to justice and equity. I've been invited to facilitate these two sections on healing justice, which is a term and a movement first coined by the Atlanta-based Kindred Southern Healing Justice Collective and Cara Page in 2007. About this, they said, quote, healing justice identifies how we can holistically respond to and intervene on generational trauma and violence, and to bring collective practices that can impact and transform the consequences of oppression in our minds, our bodies, and our hearts. Healing justice is the business of healing trauma and by returning to our natures. And I, living marginalized between cultures, having a doctorate and being Black and a woman, I know that acid, sharp sting of oppression starts first with losing your personhood, our rights as an organism to the laws of life, like rest and abundance or ease and autonomy and agency. And I came to healing justice conclusions myself through the years as I wrote, sang, prayed, remembered, crawled, danced my way back into reclaiming my personhood again and again. A little bit more about me. I'm a minister living in Tulsa, the frozen Tulsa, Oklahoma. My parents immigrated to the States and sought asylum 30 years ago. My extended family lives predominantly in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and I identify as bicultural, Ethiopian American, cisgendered, woman, able-bodied, and Black. I have a master's in divinity, and I was accepted into fellowship with the Unitarian Universalist Association in 2018. I describe my work as ever promoting a lifestyle of healing. My teacher is first and foremost life force itself, vitality. Quite literally and physically, that means I study carbon and the science of organisms, and metaphysically, mystically, I mean the network of life. It's another name I have for God. It's about relationship and connections. My studies also come from the lineage of Octavia Butler, Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison, Audre Lorde, and James Baldwin. My contemporary colleagues are in the art of observing, learning, and writing about it, Adrienne Maree Brown, who is the author of Pleasure Activism. In explaining somatic healing practices, it's Resmaa Menakem, the author of My Grandmother's Hands. In defining rest as revolution is the Nat Bishop of the Nat Ministries on Instagram and beyond. And in returning to the earth and nature's law of mutuality and generosity is Leah Penniman, the author of Farming While Black. This is a snippet of the ecosystem of writers I soak in, and though they're not ordained, they are my theological colleagues. So today I want you to know one thing for sure, or at least have evidence for the belief that you are a shaper. You are a shaper, and shaping is what got us into this mess, and shaping will get us out, the mess of trauma, socially and personally. A shaper is a term from Octavia Butler's prophetic Parable of the Sower book series. The protagonist, Lauren Oyamine, is in an apocalyptic, economy-busted, pandemic-infested, law and order dissolved America. I told you, it was prophetic. Well, Lauren was raised with a theology that held no relevance to her increasingly chaotic world, so she begins to study and write about her observations of life, my greatest teacher as well. She studies chaos and finds at the heart of it is change. She begins to learn the language of shaping change and teaches it to those willing to return to the earth. Her notes become the first book of Living for Earthseed, a growing community of misfits trying to survive and even thrive. Here are two selected verses. So the first verse from her book of the living is, all you touch, you change. All you change changes you. There is only one lasting truth, is change. God is change. We'll save another one for another day, but she calls us to remember our roles as shapers, shapers of inevitable change. In my studies of life, I've noticed patterns in my youth as well. I became a scout, a student learning about fractals and change and metaphysical connections between us all. I learned that hurt demands to heal. It will scream, fight, suffocate, terrorize, yell, anything to be acknowledged so it can start to heal. Like in Toni Morrison's book, Beloved, Sethi's baby comes back in flesh and blood. Hurt is a ghost that, with or without the original cast, will find a way to play out its pain again and again and again until it heals. I have found through trial and error while healing my own traumas that the body isn't just a storehouse of memories or pain. It is actually the key to healing. Now I could go in the direction of sharing stories or I could go in the direction of more observations, but I want to just cut to the chase, y'all. We all traumatized, okay? You can't not be touched by trauma in this planet. You can't not be, while so many identities and ways of being in the world are marginalized and idolized, shoving us out of the space of possibility available only when we are wholly human, wholly carbon. You can't not be. So what's it to you? What's it for you? When your family's toxic patterns repeat, or your ancestors pop up as pain or numbness, when the illusion that you're not enough, you're not worthy, or you're not deserving gets you in such a vortex of pain that you don't know which way is up. I'm wary of superlatives as a minister, like all or never or always, but I feel pretty certain this fog of forgetting has happened to each of us, professionally and personally. So, do you remember feeling so overwhelmed with shame or fear or irritation that you just go numb or into autopilot? These full-on emotionally kidnapping experiences are what Daniel Goleman calls the amygdala hijack. An amygdala hijack is a person's emotional response that is immediate, overwhelming, and sometimes even out of measure with the actual stimulus, because it's triggered a much more significant evolutionary emotional threat. So if you're able and interested, you can join me in making this symbol where you put your thumb in your hand and make a fist. This, for the purposes of our talk today, is your brain. This is the brainstem, your spinal cord, and here at the wrist, this is the meeting point that is often called the reptilian brain, the basic instincts for survival. Everything from rest and digest to fight and flight are dictated by this part of the brain. When in survival, there are heightened senses. Biological functions like digestion and healing are put on pause while directing all of the organism's energy to meet the problem. Here holds the power to turn on those systems and to return to a nervous system of rest. Very powerful. So the palm of your hand and your thumb are the amygdala and hippocampus, where new memories are made and emotions are regulated and processed. This area of the limbic system has been called our mammalian brain, and it is tactile, connective, relational space where archetypes, symbols, music, stories are the language. And along with new memories and emotional meaning is attached to physiological experiences sent over from the reptilian brain. It's here that the story of who we are and what the world is like is formed. Here is where we build a case for being ultimately powerful or helpless, of being ultimately loved or in danger. This is pivotal stuff. And last, here, your four fingers are the prefrontal cortex, the newest evolutionary addition to our fancy human brains, where rationalizing, moderating social behavior, planning complex skills can all happen. Daniel Siegel calls the amygdala hijack flipping your lid. It's when a sensory experience is so intense, you are moved to the sole agenda, survival. And our reptilian and mammalian brains have taken over, and your prefrontal cortex is nowhere to really be found. And this is actually functional. I often hear that the fight or flight systems of our bodies are described as the problem. But after study, I want us to be clear that our bodies are naturally built with a legendary blessing of an automated system that assembles into survival faster than our processing mind could have organized. That's why it gets out of the way. Our mind-body connection lunges towards life. Its impulse is life. That alone is beautiful. It's poetic. It's a gift. To me, it's worth meditating on in your private times. It's natural to lunge for life, but the problem I propose, the true problem, is when these parts of our brain body are interrupted from the biological automated process of discharging the accrued energy, interrupted by bad theology or by a culture that discourages healing or feeling your feelings, by an overactive prefrontal cortex, disrupted, leaving us stuck in high alert. And now our perspective is distorted. We have normalized living jammed, stuck on survival, full throttle, and acting like we're all right. Being stuck in high alert is unnatural, and thus it leads us to do and build an unnatural world. With revving nervous systems behind a prefrontal cortex, people practice religions. They build governments and economies. This land and indigenous people, I believe, were invaded by people who were living stuck in trauma, frozen in survival. They organized genocide. They commodified and enslaved humans and called it the birth of a nation. We today go to work. We try to raise children with our bodies stuck in high alert. Some of our ancestors before and now we co-create this unnatural culture that worships money and image, empty things, instead of centering life itself. With our nervous system stuck in high alert, we forego life in organic bodies, from the earth to plants, animals, other humans. We live in a world that's normalized erasing biodiversity. Out here with our lids stuck flipped, we shape a world in terror and anxiety and confusion. We're shapers. Y'all, we've all been traumatized. We are all shaping our worlds, so healing is an imperative lifestyle skill that can shape towards ultimate liberation, love, ease, equity. Somatic wisdom is to work with these root systems instead of denying them or trying to skip over them and act like everything is normal. Being polished is not the goal. Wholeness, an integrated brain-body connection, that is the goal. A brain-body connection where all the parts are able to communicate and collaborate sustainably and in an appropriate degree for the challenges required. When we fake ourselves out saying, we're fine, we prolong our healing. And I recognize being safe enough or stable enough in a space to heal can be a privilege. And I implore you, prioritize time and space to learn how to regularly use the very parts that are triggered to learn a new way of processing the experience. But do it with pleasure as a priority. Do it with rest as a right, with the body as a trusted guide, because the process is the product we seek. We will experience this more tomorrow. To renegotiate trauma in our mammalian brains, we use the language of feeling and location, connection, relationship by moving through our bodies, literally. That means anything from twitching, shaking, rocking, moaning, groaning, and more. It reminds me of the Abasha Ethiopian traditional dances with my family, or the Black Pentecostal church of my childhood. This intuitive body-led healing is in shamanic rituals, Hindu chanting and puja, in Muslim salah, and various other religious traditions and cultures around the world. Oral traditions, stories, myths, folklore ultimately provide building blocks, symbols to communicate with the mammalian parts of our brains. Stories are thickened with song and rhythm, which are also trans-dimensional communication tools with our primal parts. Ancient wisdom in our bodies. The pain, beloveds, is the point of return. Enter the portal and learn from the earth. Reclaim your power as shapers and follow the ancient wisdom to a resolution you can't imagine fully when stuck. You, beloved, are a shaper. And I pray everything in you, around you, part of this carbon experience reminds you of this truth, that you may get to the work of remembering who you are and shape for healing for yourself, that you may shape for healing for all. Come back tomorrow so we can practice this together, what I just introduced. Laura, thank you so much. Where are we off to next?
Great. Thank you so much, Reverend Hailu, for grounding us in both the physicality and spirituality of the space that we're all inhabiting. just real quick, wanted to, we're about to go into a break. I just wanted to one, acknowledge and thank Camila, who highlighted the inherent inaccessibilities to so many folks of being in this virtual space. Well, I'm also so deeply thankful that we get to create the space together. I know, right, that there are many who this is inaccessible to, and I'm so glad someone surfaced that. And then also, I would like to quickly apologize as I incorrectly spoke and referred to where I'm sitting right now in Tulsa as the Muskogee Creek Nation ancestral lands. The southeastern region of the United States are the ancestral lands of Muskogee Creek Nation, and where I reside right now are the unceded or reestablished lands. So I'm so thankful for Betances on our Take Control team for sending me that information and making sure I corrected it. So again, thank you so much to Reverend Yadani Hailu for again grounding us in where we're at today. We're gonna take about a 13-minute break and be back here at 10:15 to hear from our keynote speaker of today, Loretta Ross. So we'll see you back here at 10:15. Thank you so much, everyone.